Hello and welcome to the new video. This is my guide for Mana Strike build. This playstyle very resembles something like a custom crit for PoE. So if you're actually a fan of that playstyle from PoE, you will find this build very interesting. Nonetheless, this build has three major downsides. The number one is it requires a unique Dagger and a unique offhand. And depending, if you're playing like me, Circle of Fortune, they might be, not too hard to get, or, you just have to use some prophecies to get around with this. I don't know how expensive they are on the market, because I'm not using that Merchant Guild, I think that's how it's called, because I'm in a Circle of Fortune. The second one is, since you're standing still and you're gonna be taking a lot of hits, sometimes there's a lot of ground effects that you might not necessarily see, and you might get way too many of them, and that might actually sometimes kill you. So that's like a second downside of this build. So the last downside is like the playstyle of the ward in this build, because I'm a ward based build. So I have to constantly attack to get my ward. So if you sometimes stop for a second, your ward would decay to about 1k in my example. And if I'm gonna be encountering some kind of monster, maybe those mages sealed in those like capsule things, you just have to quickly press your flame shield and like freeze the mage. Otherwise, you might get like a huge chunk of a hit. But if you maintain your ward, then the build is quite tanky, I would say. So if you didn't notice, in the top right corner you can see my corruption on like what corruption I'm actually playing. I'm not that far yet, because I'm still progressing to the corruption, but nonetheless I was able to hit a level 100. And I actually didn't die too much, I would say. I did die a couple of times, mostly when there's like some kind of way too many ground effects after, those monsters, whenever they die, they leave some kind of poison pools and so on, and was distracted by something else. Then yeah, most likely either I would die or would be very low and I couldn't react with my flame ward. But nonetheless, I did really enjoy the build. It was quite fun. So here's a quick clip of me killing one of the bosses of the zone that I'm actually pushing with the corruption. I would say it's pretty decent speed of killing the bosses. I mean, I cannot compare it to any other builds actually, since this is my only build that I actually played in the last Epoch. In the future, I'm gonna create a couple more builds, and then I can compare how good or maybe how bad the build actually is. So now you might just enjoy the clip of me killing the boss, and after that you will get like a bunch of timestamps for like a different section of the video, so just like items, skills, passive and so on. I'm just gonna warn you this, since this is my first build and first time playing last Epoch, I might maybe, I'm not sure, I get some things wrong, or maybe everything's gonna be okay. So whatever I say, I would say, it's just my personal experience. It's not, might not be actually accurate 100%, and I actually might miss something. So that's just a warning for you.
His power is exhilarating. No, you're just a human, a worm. I was supposed to be unstoppable.
So, how I was saying at the beginning of the video, I'm playing Circle of Fortune. So everything that you're gonna see, such as my items and uniques and everything around my character, is strictly found by myself and crafted by myself. So if you would ask me how expensive is the build if I would play on the merchant guild, I don't know, it might be expensive or it might be dirty cheap. It's hard to say. I don't have any levels in the merchant guild, so take that however you like. So I can give you some advice like how to target farm those two uniques, the Dagger and the Catalyst, as them two are very important and pretty much are mandatory for the build to work. There are some prophecies, like for the Dagger, like over here, when you just kill couple like the siege golems and you're gonna get two unique Daggers, right? And the same thing with the Catalyst. As long as you're just gonna be looking for some kind of generic kill monsters or kill those exile mages, you will eventually get those two items, because those two unique items are not that hard to get. They are quite common unique. Over the span of leveling the characters, I found a bunch of them. My first Dagger and my first Catalyst, I found them around level 75 when I actually could transition into the build. But before that, I was just playing a generic caster mage. So the item filter is very important. It's important as much as your character, because this just decides the quality of life, how you're gonna be playing the game and how much crap you're gonna see on the floor. Just please remember, I'm playing Circle of Fortune. What does that mean is that I'm gonna be hiding a lot of potentially good items for someone who plays a merchant guild. So if you play a merchant guild, you're gonna have to either create your own filter or you're gonna have to adjust my item filter. There's gonna be two item filters that I'm gonna provide you with on the link in the description. The first one is the basic one. The basic one should be only used when you're starting the character and you're playing through the campaign. And there's not much things that I'm hiding in this item filter. I'm mostly hiding the crappy items, but I'm highlighting you the rares that you should be like potential upgrades for you. And the red color just is like a visual for you to pick that item up. Why? Because it might have plus level 2 skills and you're gonna need that material that when you're gonna be destroying that item in the end game. The same thing is with the idols. I highlighted to you for the spark charge on melee hit idol, because this is a very important. In my opinion, you're not gonna find too many of them, maybe 1 to 2, and they might actually transition in the end game. But they are here to highlight you, okay, this is very important, I actually should look at that item. So now let's go to the endgame item filter. The endgame item filter is designed to play in the end game, as the name applies to it. If you're not in the end game, do not play this. Do not use the item filter, as it's gonna hide a lot of items. And let me warn you again, I'm playing Circle of Fortune, so I hide a lot of exalted items that would have some kind of value for a person who plays a merchant guild. But the only rule that you need to know when you're gonna be playing with this item filter is this. A blue color item is something like, you know what, it has some kind of fixes. You should pick it up and see if you can do something about that item. The yellow is like most likely is gonna be a very decent craftable base, and the red one is gonna be, you know what, this is probably gonna be an upgrade for you, because generally what I do, the red color signalize you to okay, this is either a crafting material, a good exalted item, or either some kind of good item that you need to pick up. So that's why most of very important things on the ground are highlighted in the red color. You should automatically, without even thinking about it, pick it up. So that's the item filter. So now let's move on to the passives. You have to spend 20 points into the mage. Right, so I would advise take this elementalist. This is just gonna give you a little bit of a damage. Then I would go into full 8 points into intelligence. Then you can grab 1 point over here, 5 points over here, 5 points over here. This should give you 20 points in the mage. And now, once you finish the campaign, you can start spending more points into the Spellblade, Sorceress and Rune Master. The priority, I would say like this. Spend your 5 points in here. just the 5 points. You will come back later over here. Skip the Rune Master. In my opinion, the Rune Master provides a lot of damage, but in my opinion, in the later stage of the game, the Rune Master becomes more impactful, especially with this node. But once you put the 5 points over here, 20 points over here, you want to quickly start putting your points into a Spellblade. And I will start with this node, as this gives you the resistance and the damage. Then I will go in the ward, 1 point over here, 5 points over here, and then you can just go like with the spark charges, with the melee attack speed. Then you can go back to like, you know, the defensive over here. Then you can do spell damage, and then you can do them. Once you finish up all of the Spellblade's passives, then you can start cracking on the Rune Master. There's a lot of nice quality of life with the blessings, but there's not such a thing like, you know, if you don't have it, the character is actually bad. My first blessing is to increase the unique drop rate, because, you know, I want to get more dodges and more catalyst for myself, so I can get, like, you know, some legendary potential and actually, you know, try to get something like an upgrade. The second one is, like, you know, increase the catalyst drop. Obviously I need more catalyst. Then I have a crit multi, then I have increased Dagger drop rate, I have a shred lightning, then I have relic drop shards. This is one of the nicest actually blessings, because it gives you crit avoidance. I would say this is one of the better blessings that you can get on this build. Then I have some class specific shards, then I have chance to chill, and I have flat armor. Flat armor is actually, again, one of the better blessings that you have. In my opinion, those two blessings are the most impactful. The rest of them is just nice to have, but if you won't have them, it's like whatever you get from the boss, just stick with that. Unless you want to rerun a couple times the boss, then yeah, go for it. So my idols. For the idols, I'm using a lot of small and like medium sized, I think that, let's call them like that. So I have like a Mage idol when I get some spark charges and I get some crit chance. Another one, spark charge and some crit chance. And I follow the same thing. Crit chance and some cold. I have crit chance and resistance. I have some armor and resistance pretty much, and that's what I do. I mostly fill my idols are for here to fill up any like crit chance, resistance, anything that I'm missing. If I am missing some fire resistance, then I will swap around my idols to get, like, you know, let's say move them from fire to cold. Or I will get, like, do I have one somewhere? Maybe like all elemental resistance if I'm missing. But the smaller ones I was like focusing on like getting as much as armor as I can, and like some kind of secondary thing, like, you know, resistance or whatever. My item filter is gonna be helping you out getting those idols that you actually need for the build. So now let's talk about my items. Please remember, all of the items were dropped and crafted by me, because I'm using Circle of Fortune. So if you are someone like a merchant guild, you probably can get way better items than me, but I'm just gonna tell you what each specific slot what I was trying to focus on getting in that specific slot. So let's start with the helmet. My main priority with the helmet was getting some kind of exalted lightning blast, because I'm gonna get a lightning blast plus 3 skills and get some increased spell damage. After that, I was trying to get some resistance and anything else useful that I can get on my helmet. So let's move on to the first mandatory item, and you need to have it, otherwise the build won't work. It's this Dagger. This Dagger is a very common unique. It's not hard to get. You can target farm this Dagger with the prophecies over here when you're gonna get a unique Dagger. So that doesn't mean you're gonna get a guarantee this Dagger, but this will guarantee you to have, like, you know, a chance to gaining this Dagger. And this Dagger, according to the last Epoch wiki or whatever, is a common unique. And I would say yes, I got those bunch of those Dagger when I was targeting actively the prophecies. And then at some point I got a bunch of them with 2 legendary potentials, and I got actually 2 of like really good affixes on this Dagger, such as increase melee attack speed and shred. So that's like, you know, quite good, I would say. So now we're moving on to the second mandatory item, is this Fragment of Enigma. This is again a mandatory item. It will actually go nicely synergized with the Dagger, and again you can target farm this item with the prophecy for offhands, right? And this is another common unique. It's not that hard to get. As long as you're gonna be targeting the prophecy with the catalyst, you will eventually get it. And at some point I got myself like a couple pairs of like the 2 legendary potential, and this is the best I could get. I got myself some crit multi and void resistance. It's not the void resistance, it's not actually the best, but you know, it is there, so you know, why not? And those 2 items synergize very, very well. For my body armor, my main priority was getting the mana strike +3, because that's gonna give me increased lightning damage as well, and some resistance and so on. I was lucky enough to get myself intelligence +8, and I was able to seal it. So that's why I have like a 1 additional affix on my body armor. For the gloves, I'm using this unique pair of gloves because I'm trying to get some kind of good implicits, because you know they have the weaver wheel. But if I wanted to get myself something better, probably I would start looking for those mages, the exile mages gloves, when they have like the armor applied to damage over time. I would try to seal that affix and get other affixes such as like increase attack speed and maybe like a crit chance and you know other things. But for now I'm just using those gloves, as I do have a couple more pairs in my stash tab and I'm trying to get something good. I mean, they are not the best, but they are decent, I would say. So for my boots, I was trying to get int, I was trying to get as much as movement speed, some kind of resistance and crit avoidance, and that's pretty much it what I wanted. So my belt slot, the main stats I was losing, just getting some resistance, increased lightning damage, and I had like ward gain on potion use. I mean, this is not necessarily a useful stat on that belt, but you know that's what I have. So I'm like, you know what, why not? So the rings that I'm using both. I'm using 2 of the same ring, and there are set rings. And they are quite good because the modifier that you see on the ring that have 9% chance to gain ward when you hit a shocked enemy. Since the build is shocking very often from different sources, this end up when you go back to the boss clip, that I'm getting my ward relatively fast because I can stand still and you know attack quite often the boss. So, and you get some spell damage from them as well. But 2 of them they are mainly used for gaining the ward, making your build a way more tanky. For my amulet slot, I was trying to get the base with the melee attack speed and some kind of nice exalted affix, right? So I got myself a lightning pen, then I just crafted myself a spell crit chance and some resistance that I was missing, and that's pretty much my amulet. And for the relic, I'm using the Mage relic, and you're just trying to get anything useful from the Weaver, passives or whatever that gonna be called. Because on the base, the relic gives you +1 to Mage skills. That's great, and you can roll some good stats. I was quite lucky, I would say, and I got +11 intelligence on my relic. So I mean that's great. So overall with the gear, I would say my gear is not that great. Basically what I was trying to do when I was crafting most of my gear is to get a 1 exalted affix and craft around that. So I don't think it's gonna be too hard to replicate or even improve this build by a long shot. and especially when you're probably playing a trading league like a merchant guild or whatever that's properly called, you're probably gonna have way better gear than me. But even so, I'm still able to play fine with the build. So now let's look on the skills. Just remember, when you transition into the build, this is how your skills should look like. Because before you get yourself the Dagger and the Catalyst, you should just play as a generic spell caster. You can use the Mana Strike to get some mana back, but your primary spell, and the spell that I was using while doing the campaign, I was using Glacier. And I went over here with the largest wave, the rare monster and bosses get extra damage, and then I went over here to like revert the Glacier, because the Glacier does like a small wave, a medium wave and a large wave. If you take this point, it starts backwards, so it's just a large, medium, small wave. And then I was just putting some points like, you know, to increase the damage of the large wave, and I took the medium wave as well. And pretty much the Mana Strike and the Glacier got me to level 75 when I actually dropped the 2 uniques that I could actually start playing the build. So once you have the 2 unique items, this is the priority of your skills. And you can actually, even when you're playing the campaign, you can use some of them, such as you can play Mana Strike, you can play frostclaw, and you can play the Flame Ward. And here's some like a playstyle thing, because you might be wondering why I don't have like, you know, my lightning blast or a frostclaw on my bar, as they don't have to actually be on your bar, because when you're going to be attacking, you will trigger them as long as you have the Dagger. So that's why on my bar I have a flame shield, because I just press it whenever I need. I have a cold snap. Sorry, this just allows me to like freeze or stun any other, like, you know, mages, bosses. Not every boss can be freeze or stun, but most of them, yeah. So that's why the, you know, the cold snap is very useful. Enhanced weapon is over here, just is being done automatically. I don't have to do anything. And I have a teleport, you know, because sometimes you just have to, you know, move around, so you need some kind of movement skill. I was trying to play around with with Surge, but I found out a Surge without any points, it's not that good as teleport. So I'm sticking to the teleport. So Lightning Blast. If you're gonna be leveling with this build, do not actually put the Lightning Blast as your first skill. Play with whatever skill do you feel, or whatever skill do you want. I was playing with the Glacier, because there's no other ways to proc a Lightning Blast if you don't have this Dagger. So that's why you don't want to spec yourself and start leveling the Lightning Blast. It's much easier to just spec yourself later in the game, because, you know, getting the experience in the late game is much easier, and to level up the skill. So how do you want to level up the skill once you get, you know, into Endgame? Just press, remember, I have 5 additional points. I have 3 points from my helmet, 1 point from the offhand, and I have 1 point from my relic. That gives me 5 extra points. So what I would do, I would spec myself over here. So I would go over here, 2 points over here, I would go 4 points over here, and this is 1 point over here. This gives you the most amount of single target that you can get from the skill, and gives you a defensive bonus over here. Then what I would do, I would spec myself at least 2 points over here, 3 points over here, 1 point over here, and as many points as you can have over here. And then once you get additional points like me, I would just spec all of my points over here. And if you get more points, like, you know, like I have 25 points, I would say it's unnecessary, because at this point there's not many nodes that you can take that gonna be impacting the game, like this one. This gives me a shock chance. It's nice to have, but I would say it's pretty much useless. So if I had 24 points, I would skip definitely this one. If you have 23 points or less, I will start respecing 3 points over here. So let's talk about Mana Strike. What you need to know about Mana Strike is this. Mana Strike is not your damage skill. In the end game, the skill does not do too much damage. what I would say. This is more of a proc skill. When you proc, you increases the bonuses damage for your other spells. That's how you have to look at this skill. And you can do a couple of things with this skill. Just please remember, have 5 additional points, and I will explain, if you don't have those 5 additional points, when you can trim down a little bit of the points. So what I will do when I start, I will put 2 points over here, 2 points over here, then I will do 1 point and 1 point. How come? Them 2 points will significantly increase the quality of life of the mana strike, because the mana strike becomes a range attack that's auto-targeting the monsters. It feels very good. Then what I will do, I will put 1 point over here, 4 points over here quickly. Then I will put 1 point over here, 1 point, and I will put at least 2 points over here. And at this stage, you have to think about like this. Do you have a lot of crit chance? If the answer is yes, you can put more points over here. If the answer is no, because you're still gathering the gear, or maybe there's nothing on the market, if you're playing the merchant guild, or whatever the reason might be, I will spec 1 point over here. This node gives you ridiculous amount of critical chance. This pretty much makes your mana strike always critically strike. The downside is that you don't have no critical multi, but let me just say this again, your mana strike pretty much without even this node maybe gonna be hitting for 1k or less in my setup. So you're not losing too much damage, but you're gaining significantly a lot of crit chance, right? So now once you get yourself additional points, what I would say, start specking into them 2 nodes. Them 2 nodes are pretty much global increases to your damage. It even says that in the description, global spell damage and just a global increased damage. Them 2 nodes, while you're gonna be attacking the mana strike, gonna be ramping a lot of percent. I think one time I got up to about 400 on a training dummy, and then 2 increases apply to your other skills, the other spells like this one and this one over here. And there's one thing to mention about mana strike as well, because this node gives negative 80% of mana gain from mana strike. But for some reason, if you wanted to spec yourself over here, right, because you would say, why do you want to pick up those 2 nodes and like 4 points over here if you can go over here and get more mana just for like hitting the enemy? For some reason the game, this node affects this node over here. So however many points you put over here, this negative mana gain will affect this node. But for some reason this negative node over here does not affect the crit mana gain. That's why this node is so good, and that's why I did recommend, if you don't have the crit chance, to go over here, as you're gonna be gaining a lot of mana back whenever you crit. I mean, I don't know what intention the developer had with that, but for some reason this node is just absolutely the best node that you have to get on the mana strike. So once you have yourself a Dagger and your Catalyst, you can start actually playing the build, and now you can spec into the correct skills. So the first skill that you're gonna be using is gonna be Enchanted Weapon. This pretty much just provides you with the buff. The buff is pretty much useless, I would say, for your melee attack, as this is not like you're gonna be doing a lot of damage from the mana strike. It's mostly the Enchant Weapon just provides you a buff to other sources. That's how you have to look at this skill. So you want to put at least 2 points over here, you want to put right away 4 points over here and 1 point over here. This will just automatically cast your enhanced weapon. If you look over here, it's just casting automatically as I'm explaining the skill, because of this node. And this node makes it the mana and the enchant weapon free. Now we'll go back to put 2 remaining points over here, then you go 5 points over here, and at this point you absolutely can spec on whatever you want. Getting some extra shock chance is nice, but it's not mandatory. getting this cleanse element. It's nice, but it's not mandatory. And I have like +1 from my relic, so I have like a melee chill chance. Like again, it's nice, but it's not mandatory. So the next skill that you're gonna be using is frostclaw, and you can actually use this skill as early as you get yourself the mana strike. Simply because you want to go over here and pick up this node. This node simply says that you have 30% chance whenever you attack with a melee attack, and the melee attack that you're going to be using is a mana strike, and you're just going to proc the frostclaw. It's a very nice, just like, you know, to increase you a little bit of a damage when you're going to be in the campaign section. Then I will go over here, pick up the barrage, and at this point, once you have this and this path, you can just fill up the remaining points. You go over here to take to convert the frostclaw from cold to lightning, and then you can just, you know, depending how many points do you have, you want to fill up some generic damage over here and the crit chance over here. Then we're moving on to Flame Ward. Flame Ward is pretty much your generic shield. You should be pressing this, you know, in some kind of situations when you're gonna be either you have no choice and you're gonna have to tank the hit, or just you're pretty much too lazy to dodge the boss mechanic, and you're just gonna say, you know what, I'm just gonna press my flame shield and I'm just gonna take the hit. So that's pretty much what the flame shield is used to, because it provides you a nice bonus defense. And how I would actually approach leveling this skill is like this. I will go over here, pick up this, because this is very important, because it gives you additional charge. And at this point, once you have this, you can pretty much pick up any point that you want, because you can go over here, pick up this, or you can go like this. In my opinion, I would prefer this, because this just gives you a little bit more duration. And I have +1 skill from my Mage relic. If you don't have the Mage relic and you have to skip a point, I would say you can skip 1 point over here. So hopefully at this point you did enjoy the video and you're gonna try the Mana Strike build. So I would say thank you for watching the video, and I will see you later in my next video.